This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV, it's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
The lady who had road rage sees me talking to this lady, and she goes off, and she comes right after me. And now look, I got my kids in the back of the car, and they're seeing this whole thing go down. And this crazy lady is yelling at me like, "What did you say to her?" And I was like, "Well, and then she saw my logo on my shirt, and she like changed completely. And she says, "Do you work at Community Impact?" And I was like, "Yeah." I never tell people what I do, but I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "I just love that paper. Like, it tells me everything." I mean, it was the craziest thing.
This is Small Press, Big Ideas, a podcast about the business of local news in the United States. I'm your host, Paul Gewertz. Small Press, Big Ideas is about the opportunities and challenges that local news publishers are facing for their businesses. I'll sit down and talk with journalists, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and more in the local news industry to find out what's working, what isn't, and how the local news ecosystem can innovate and flourish in the 21st century. All right, today on the podcast, I'm joined by John Garrett. John is the CEO and founder of Community Impact News, where they distribute hyperlocal news and information to millions of local residents and business owners each day online and monthly by mail, down in Texas, in the Austin area, right?
Yes.
Is that correct? All right.
In Austin, yeah.
And anyway, yeah, I've been following John for a while on LinkedIn. Anybody plugged into this podcast is probably aware of John. He's a great guy. So thank you so much for coming on. I've been looking forward to this one. Thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love your podcast. I love the work you're doing as well. So thank you.
I appreciate that. I really do. Cool. So, I did a very brief bio there, kind of like I do on all these, but I'd love it if you could just dive in a little bit on just your bio, on your life, and what led you up to founding Community Impact. Like, where do you come from?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I love the fact that Jennifer and I, my wife and I, are both from Pflugerville, where our headquarters is. It's a suburb of Austin. And we both went to a state university called Sam Houston in Huntsville. And I studied radio television. I thought I wanted to have a great radio voice like you do and do play-by-play in sports. And I got this great internship at the Houston Chronicle. And it was awesome because it was like late 90s. So it was kind of glory days for the newspaper. And I was on the business side. And I just really got fortunate. And they hired me right out of college. And I went to work basically as an ad assistant. It's where I learned a lot about how to take care of local businesses and how important they are to our business and to the economy. And I really love for local business. And so anyways, my wife and I are like most Austinites that we want to move back home. And so I left the Houston Chronicle. I took a job at the Austin Business Journal. I was 25. It was my first management job to build a sales team. And I built a great team. And I learned a lot about great people from the Houston Chronicle. In fact, there's so many people around the country that came from the Hearst from the late 90s that are doing really amazing things because it was, birds of a feather. And so I learned how to build a sales team, and I built a great team there. And then, we live in a suburb north of Austin called Round Rock. It's home of Dell Computer Corporation. And we felt like something was missing. They had community newspapers, but we didn't have kids. We wanted to know about local restaurants near us. We actually just wanted to know back then if there was going to be a Starbucks ever in Round Rock. Come a long way. But anyways, so I quit the Business Journal. I took a $39,000 credit card loan, game room of the house, all the stuff. And because of my experience, I built a business plan, and then I had good sales experience, so I was able to sell the idea. But I was pretty naive in how it all come together. But for reasons I can't completely control myself, my faith's a big part of who I am. I do give a lot of credit to the Lord, but we were very successful and people loved us. And every 6 months we started adding new papers. Neighboring areas needed a community impact. And then we went to Houston, and then we went to Dallas, and we did some out of state stuff. And we can talk about that if you want to later, where we didn't have as much success, but we're now focused solely on Texas. We're in San Antonio as well. We're growing, and we have a beloved product, and I'm a learner, so I'm excited about all the new stuff that's happening that I learned from your podcast and other podcasts. And I think it's a great time to be in the business.
What? Yeah, I totally agree. I'm on the same page with it. I'm a glass half full kind of guy, I guess. I guess I don't know if I talked to you about it or looked it up. So it says like on the website, I think that when it started, it was you and your wife and 3 employees, I believe.
Yeah.
So 05, that was when things were starting to go digital. What was the product then? I don't know if I know. Was it print then or was it?
It was print. Yeah, it was. It still is to this day. It's very, very similar. If I pulled out a paper from 2005, it would look very similar. I mean, the design has gotten a lot better. The writing has gotten a lot better. The paper's gotten bigger. But the idea was kind of like, hey, we wanted, well, in the first edition, this was before Google Maps, and we paid a satellite company $2,500 to get this huge satellite image of where these toll roads in Austin were being built, because no one knew. No one knew where they were going. No one knew how much they were going to cost. And so it was just this curiosity, like, what is that? And let's just answer it. Let's just tell people what's going on. So we built this huge spread in the middle of the first edition, and we mapped every entrance ramp and exit ramp for the toll road, which was huge. And I think providing that useful information that was hyperlocal, that we really used a lot of maps to tell the story, I think readers were like, whoa, this is different. This is cool. And we were off to the races. We were cash flow positive month 2.
Wow.
We definitely hit a home run.
That's awesome. So it started as print. It's still print. I mean, you do have robust kind of digital stuff now, but could you kind of give us, we have kind of the origin. Could you tell me a little bit about the community impact from a business perspective now in terms of the formats? You said you still do print. I know you have digital, like I said.
Yeah.
What tech stack you're using, main revenue channels, maybe you don't have to give us numbers or anything, but I'm just curious about the business side of all that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind sharing. I think sharing helps others. I mean, we have 41 editions. We're a privately held company. So Jennifer and I are the only shareholders. My wife and I are the only shareholders, which is really nice.
That's very nice. Yeah. No answering to anyone else.
Yeah. Right. And that you gotta, somebody says you put either mission or profit first. Now you need profit for mission, but you either put mission or profit first. And that makes a difference when when it's your name behind everything. We put mission first, but we're 41 markets around Texas. We're adding 2 additional ones in a few months in May this is 2025. And we're monthly print, and we mail to every household within a geographic area for free. So now we're up to 2.5 million households around Texas. We're in 41 editions, anywhere from 20,000 printed and mailed to over 100,000 printed and mailed, depending on how big the area is. We also have a daily email product that currently we're in HubSpot, but man, I am a good target for any of your ESP. I'm spending a lot of time right now on digital. We could talk about that later if you want, but our approach is what we call the phygital approach. It's the idea of you have a physical paper that's once a month, and then you have digital products that are every day. And I really like that kind of setup. And we just got lucky. It's not that, a lot of legacy news organizations are having to cut back on days because, let's be honest, I mean, who wants to read a newspaper on a Tuesday? Very few people. And so their legacy models, they're going to have to unwind that. And they are. And I think that's smart. And, I don't know what the perfect model is, if it's weekly print or monthly print, but I really like our model.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. You do see, print publications reducing days and everything all over the board. It is sad, but it does make sense in this age.
Yeah.
I think I'm a little younger than you. I was born in the 80s, raised in the 90s, but I have like very fond editions. I grew up in the Denver area. I have very fond memories, not editions, of the Sunday paper with like the color comics and the huge Denver Broncos sports section. And then, what do you call it? Phygital? Your phygital model? I love that. I'm going to have to put that as like a clip. I had, I don't know if you listen to every episode, but Keith Pepper from Rough Draft Atlanta.
Yeah, I do. I did listen to that. Yes.
Yeah, pretty similar model because he has like the print edition. And then he sent me a copy of Rough Draft Atlanta when we were prepping that. And I was like, oh yeah, I talked to all these cool people, these cool businesses. And then when I've got it in here somewhere. When I actually held the physical thing in my hands, I'm like, oh man, this is so cool. Like being able to just flip through it. And I can see, and we'll get to this later, I can see how people really love community impact because they do. Because
they really do. It's wild. And it's funny side note about Keith is in March of 2020, we actually launched Community Impact Atlanta. So we were in Phoenix, Nashville. We launched Atlanta in March of 2020. Really
wow.
great. And so we pulled back. we pulled back quickly. And I remember watching Keith build that, his company. And I sent him a note on LinkedIn. I just said, hey, man, I'm so glad that we pulled out of Atlanta because I think he's a great operator and he does really good work. And so anyways, it was a dodge a bullet type of thing with him. I think he's a great operator.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's like the exact time from my memory of when he launched there also, right?
That's right.
At the beginning of the pandemic. Yeah.
Right.
That's crazy. Awesome. So you kind of dove into the scale and everything. So you're at 41, around 41 markets around Texas. Texas is like its own country. It's huge.
Yeah.
Is it all over? Is it mostly around the Austin area or?
No, yeah, we're in Austin, Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio. So the four kind of core markets. We would love to continue to grow. I mean, there's areas of Texas that we can still grow in, but there's areas of San Antonio and Dallas that we can still grow in. Houston and Austin are pretty. I mean, we got a few areas that we're going to add, but we've got those markets pretty locked down, and we really like where we're at there. But yeah, we want to continue to grow in Texas. And the great thing about community impact is they're all called community impact. So like people who live in Katy, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston, they get a community impact. And then if they move to Frisco, Texas, up near Dallas, they get a community impact. And they already know what to do with it. Like it's the same format. It's just hyperlocal news. So it's we didn't plan on that. I was not that smart, but being one brand has really helped us.
Yeah. That's sorry, I keep talking about Keith here, but I think they're like kind of separately branded things, but I could definitely see how having that community impact logo and brand affinity is an asset. That's what my question was. So from one location in Round Rock, because that what the first one was, to 41 over 20 years, basically.
Yeah.
Was that a straight line? Was there like periods? I'm just curious what the trajectory looked like over the year and any thoughts you have on like growth, because that's a lot of growth.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the years during the early years we were adding 2, 3, or 4 additions, and then it multiplied when we went to Phoenix and Nashville, because then it's basically one a metro. But yeah, I mean that's slowed down. Now we're back to about 2 or 3 now, and I mean I have a really great president here named Kelly. I think she wants to ramp it up a little bit more, like 4 or 5 a year. So, slow and steady. I'll tell you a funny story is right before we decided to close down Nashville and sell our operations in Phoenix, I did this thing called, it had to be around 2020, but I did this thing called Drive to 2025. You got to rhyme.
Of course.
To be a good CEO, you have to have something clever. And anyways, it was this chart, and I wish I could pull it up for you, but it was this chart, and it was like how we were gonna like go, and we're gonna grow fast, and it was crazy expensive. Like I don't even know what I was thinking about how I would fund it. I just thought we would get there, and I remember showing it like all excited to my leadership team, and they were all like looking at me like, "This is not motivating." And so that's when I pulled back. I mean, that's when I started the process of, I had some really good entrepreneur friends that helped me, and I went through it with them, and they're the ones who are like kind of helped me say, hey, like I think maybe you should scale back and focus on Texas. And so that was a hard time for sure for me, and it's still hard for me to fly into Nashville, to be honest with you. I love the city, but those airport trips when we were growing in there, there are a lot of really good memories there. And so when I fly back there, I'm kind of a little bit melancholy, a little sad, but it was the right decision. And now we're really focused on Texas. And, like you said, Texas is the 9th largest economy in the United States. It's open. Like, you have Hearst, who owns San Antonio and Houston. Dallas Morning News is a publicly traded company. Austin is owned by Gannett, and so like there's one brand, Community Impact, that like that's all over. And so in all those markets, so it's kind of an opportunity. I see it as a big opportunity for us that, to continue to grow our brand and be, the goal is to be the most trusted, most read local news organization in Texas. And we are not far away from that. So I'm excited about the path we're on.
That's awesome. John, I just realized who you remind me of after talking to you earlier this week and your company's history and everything. Hopefully you think it's a compliment. Southwest Airlines started in Texas. Crazy, like cult-like following. People love it. I think they were profitable for like 60 consecutive years till the pandemic or something. That's totally it. You're the Herb Kelleher of local media. Take that as you will. Yeah.
I read that book, Love. Man, what a great book, because he really did love his employees. He really did care about each and every one of them. And also, you just saying that I'm working on some, reader revenue membership opportunities. Maybe they need you get a flask of Jack Daniels.
I was gonna say he loved Wild Turkey too, right?
That's right. It was Wild Turkey.
Yeah,
That's what you're right. So maybe I need to take one out of his book.
Yeah, I had to bring that up in the moment. That's what you were reminding me of with your whole story, which is a great.
Yeah, there was a point where Southwest Airlines was actually the largest distributor of alcohol in the whole state of Texas.
That's crazy. I've heard some crazy stories about that company. Yeah. It's wild times in the 60s or 70s, whenever it was when they launched.
That's a great compliment. I hope I love my people. I hope they feel as loved as I know they did for him. My father-in-law actually was a Southwest pilot during the good.
Oh, really?
Day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a special company.
That's it is. Well, it's had some rough patches recently, but that's okay. So you were just talking about how you kind of backed out. You listened to the people around you and backed out of, was it Nashville? You said when you were going in there, and that's another thing. Just I've been following you on LinkedIn, but it's different talking to somebody earlier this week. It really strikes me that you seem to be a really great leader. Listening to people around you. I've had plenty of bosses who I wish had listened to stuff like feedback I had in the past. And you told me a story earlier this week when we met in our pre-record call, about kind of in the same vein about, you've been running this company for decades now, I guess. Yeah, decades. And you recently had to go take over at another branch or something like that. And just kind of lessons you were telling me about how it kind of felt like your first day. I just wonder if you could just speak on that a bit and any lessons from like a leadership perspective there.
Man, I'm glad you're asking that question because I've been thinking about this a lot. Our industry is really hard. This is a tough business. And I'll go and hang out with other people that maybe in software or something. And one of the things they say is like, hey, when you build your business, you got to make sure you have the right people around you so that you can, take some time off and enjoy the fruit of being an owner. And I do have great people around me. I mean, unbelievable people around me. But I think this business is so difficult and moves so quickly that the owner operator being involved in the business is really important right now. And so, yeah, I've had an interesting last 12 months. Our printing facility, we have our own printing facility here in Pflugerville. It's a state-of-the-art. It's an amazing facility. It's awesome. If you're ever in Austin and any of y'all want to come check it out, I'd love to give you a tour. But we print here and we had some problems there. So I went next door for 6 months at the printing facility and just rebuilt the culture there. It's awesome. I mean, those blue-collar pressmen are just incredible. And we really made people feel like they're part of the team, and we really did some great things. And so after I got that, and I got another leader in there, our Dallas team had a leadership change. And so over the last 6 months, I've been really driving to Dallas every single week, sometimes making 2 trips a week to just help build that team. And I've been fortunate enough to now, after 6 months, to find another leader. And now his name's John Alper, and he's over there, and he's doing a great job. And so now I'm back here. And now I'm starting to work on the tech stack. So I'm working on a ton of digital stuff. So that's kind of my new 6 to 12 month assignment. But yeah, I think it's really important for operators to get into the business. And my goal is that we have a multi-generational business. I've got 3 daughters. One of them is studying journalism at University of Texas. Side note, she's interning right now at Hearst Newspapers, which is where I interned, which is just a really cool side note. But if I want her or my family to get involved, I have 2 other daughters. I'd love to be in the business as well. I think it's critical that they spend time in the printing plant and they spend time selling and they spend time reporting, all the areas that they possibly can, so that they can have a good grasp on the business. I'm telling you, I think as hard as it is, I think innovators or operators in our space, we've got to understand ESPs, understand, digital ad platforms. I mean, we have to understand, CMS systems. And I know that it's very uncomfortable, but we have to understand AI. I've spent time building agents myself in AI because I'm not very good at it, but I wanted to at least understand how the technology worked. And I think that that's really important in our business. And so you have to listen to the other entrepreneurs, like I said earlier, that are trying to help you. But at the same time, it's tempting to listen to them to say like, oh, you should have teams that do all this stuff. And I gotta say, I don't know if I agree, because it's so hard out there right now. I feel like there's the old saying, right? That the world is moving faster than it ever has, and today is the slowest day it's ever going to move. And you're like, what? Okay. So, anyways, I hope that doesn't depress your listeners. I find energy from it. I mean, I think you have to be in the right headspace, but I'm finding a lot of energy, talking to these technology platforms. I am. And I'm asking dumb questions because I need to understand it. And they're answering them. And then I'm like the last guy, I'll tell you that this is a quick story. The last guy before I got on this call, I was talking to a major platform, you would know the name. And anyways, he was like, okay, so because he's talked to other people on my team and he's like, but you're the owner. And so why are you involved? I explained it all to him and he did a great job of helping me, but it's a new day and we have to be ready for it.
Local news needs new revenue streams. And my company, localpod.co, makes it easy and affordable. Our entry-level offering transforms your written content into high-quality audio and monetizes it with programmatic ads, all with zero extra work on your end. Think of it as a plug-and-play podcast solution for publishers. And if and when you're ready, we'll help you stair-step your podcast feed up to even more content, whether that's in-depth investigative reporting, interviews with community leaders, or whatever ideas you may have. You keep reporting, we help you turn it into new revenue. So you can get started at localpod.co, link in the show notes, or click the link in the show notes to set up a call with us today and learn more. Okay, back to the episode. That's great. I love it. I'm energized by it too. That is kind of crazy. Today's the slowest day it's ever going to be. That kind of freaks me out. That's a little existential, but you're probably right. I mean, you are right,
I think I heard that phrase a year ago, and it seems to be true every day.
It seems to be true. Absolutely. I've been playing around with some agents as well. I just get bogged down, and I have too many gopher heads pop up that I wind up having to chase. So I haven't actually built one out yet, but they're super interesting, and it'll probably just get easier and easier to do that as well. I also just wanted to touch on the point you said about owner-operators being so important in this business. It's funny. I put out this curated newsletter every week of stuff from around the industry. And this week on Thursday, I put it out, and there was a story from Pointer on the National Trust for Local News, which is a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. And their CEO recently stepped down. And basically what they do, instead of providing grants to newsrooms, they were buying them up. And then operating from a central facility. And this whole piece was like, we don't know if this is working kind of deal. And it kind of caused, I don't want to say a controversy, but I've never had so many unsubscribes from a post as putting that one up. Yeah, really? In my newsletter. Yeah. So, I mean, I was a little harsh the way it's just a curated thing.
I read it. I read it. I thought it was super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting. It seems valid that it would make maybe, and the piece was really kind of generous. It's like, hey, we're not saying that it's kaput or anything like that. Just maybe you need to rethink how these places are being operated. So that's really interesting to hear you say that as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I read your piece, and I mean, that was a pretty interesting newsletter that you just sent out. I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. But anyways, I thought that you were very fair, but I do think, like, I was talking to someone up in Dallas today that was talking about how a local radio station there in Dallas, a nonprofit station, bought the Denton Record Chronicle in Denton, which is a suburb of Dallas. And I don't think it's going well. Like, I could be totally wrong, and the same thing happened in Chicago, right? The Chicago Sun-Times got bought by a nonprofit radio station there as well. And it's all like good intentions, right? Like, mm-hmm. But I think sometimes people look into our space and they think this is easy. Like, or not easy, but like, I can do that. Like, I mean, that's what you have with Jeff Bezos at the Washington Post. I mean, you see it all over the place where people assume that this business is really difficult. There's so many reasons behind it, but like, you have to pay for the content, right? You have to have high quality journalists that are out there getting content that no one else has. You have to manufacture it. It doesn't matter if you're printing it or if you're distributing it via, email newsletters or even web hosting. You still have to get it out there. And then that's the last thing, you have to distribute it. 3 of those things are very expensive and very difficult to manage because how do you distribute digital content today? Everyone's like, oh, it's easy, right? Like, you just put it out there and people come to it. Like, if you've been in our business for a little while, you know how difficult it is to distribute digital content. How easy is it to build a newsroom? Right? Like,
right.
Oh, it's easy, right? It's so hard to build a really high quality newsroom, even with all the talent that's out there that come from different backgrounds, they have different worldviews. How do they mesh with what you're trying to accomplish? The culture, right? Like all that stuff. It's very difficult. How do you sell ads, right? How do you sell ads? Oh, it's easy, right? Like you just go to the business owners and you just ask them for money and they just give you money. No, it's all of it is so hard. And I think people don't understand that aren't operators. And I'll tell you what's interesting that I noticed as soon as these private equity firms were buying these news organizations and as soon as all the consolidation was happening in the space, if you had conversations with who used to be the operators at the dailies, now they're all kind of regional, right? But if you had the conversations with the people that operate, they knew what they were doing. And I think that they could have fixed it, but it was a spreadsheet. So they didn't.
Right.
And we know what happened. So I think it's a difficult business. And I think people from the outside don't fully understand all the complexities of this industry. But the people on the inside, like me and like a few others that I really admire that I've gotten to know that are operating news organizations, man, we get it. And that's where the mission versus profit, like we're so focused on the mission that we're going to make a profit and we understand that we're in a different kind of business and it's a battle. No get rich quick people over here.
That's interesting. And I hadn't really heard it framed that way, but you're totally right. Because you see articles out there like, I started a newsletter and now I make $250,000 a year. Like, boom, boom, like that. And it's just like, there's a lot of stuff like that floating around.
And listen, there are a few of those success stories, but
and they probably grind too, though, to get to you know what I mean? Even those success stories probably grind. Yeah. So,
but here's the thing about media. Like, there's a guy you may know his name. His name's Evan Smith. He used to run the Texas Tribune here. He longtime Texas Monthly leader. Just a I call him a one of a kinder. And here's why. He had the ability to tell editorial stories like no one else. And he wouldn't admit this because he came from the editorial side, but he also could sell. That guy could sell. And he made the Texas Tribune, really successful. I think that people underestimate how talented those one-offs are, like Evan and like you said, the newsletter guy. Like they have a unique set of skills that you and I don't have. And we got to play in our game and know what our game is. And we sometimes underestimate the unicorns. There are unicorns. There's unicorns influencers. There's unicorns tech people. There's unicorn media people, and that's okay. We're not all unicorns, but we can still do good work.
Yeah, that's great stuff. Okay, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So going back to we kind of touched on this earlier, just how beloved community impact is, and you told me about this the other day. So I'm just curious, a few things. You said, I think you kind of said to me, it was. You're not sure how it happened, how you're so beloved by the people around you. But if you have any theories on why, and also you got to tell the story you told me the other day of the road rage incident to kind of maybe kick it off and show how loyal people are to community.
Yeah. I think what's fun about community impact is, John and Jennifer Garrett aren't front and center. So they don't know us. They don't really know we're not celebrities or anything. They don't know. No one knows who we are, which is great. And so the story you're telling, I told you, it's a weird thing. Like, so when we started the paper, we really wanted to be everyone's news source. And that means you got to have a tone that works in, a very progressive area like Central Austin. You got to have a tone that works in a very conservative area like Georgetown, Texas. So like we figured it out. Like we have a really straightforward tone. Our approach is we want to be, the sage, of the community. We don't want to be like the person telling everyone what to do. We want to be the sage. Hey, here's the information. I think we've pulled it off. And so the story you're saying is we were talking about my daughters and about how it's been fun to watch them grow up, with the company and, and they want to be, I think they want to get in the company because they've kind of heard really good things as they've gone through schools and teachers have found out, that we own the paper and they always hear, oh, that's the only thing I read. Well, one day when I was picking up my daughter, this happens all the time. And if you work at Community Impact, you know exactly what I'm talking about because all you have to do is be wearing like a logoed shirt, like I've got on right now,
right?
And walking into H-E-B, our beloved grocery stores here. And so what was happening is I was picking up my daughter from school, and it seemed like there's a road rage incident in the park. Kind of pulled in next to me, and the lady behind her with her, right? And she got out of her car, was like, yeah, she's right here, I'm backed in, and she's just getting yelled at. And so I unroll my window, and I tell the lady next to me that got yelled at, I said, hey, listen, I don't know what happened there, but like she's probably just having a bad day, like don't let it bother you, it's fine. Well, the lady who had road rage sees me talking to this lady and she goes off and she comes right after me. And now look, I got my kids in the back of the car and they're seeing this whole thing go down. And this crazy lady is yelling at me like, "What did you say to her?" And I was like, "Well, and then she saw my logo on my shirt, and she like changed completely. And she says, "You work at Community Impact?" And I was like, "Yeah." I never tell people what I do, but I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "I just love that paper. Like, it tells me everything." I mean, it was the craziest thing, but my kids saw that. And I think that's helped them, want to be in the business. But that's what, if, for whatever reason, our brand has been well loved. And truly my prayer was when we started the business was that it would be accepted, that regardless of people's socioeconomic status, that they would accept it into their home. And for some reason, that's happened. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah, that's a great business and parenting moment right there. And
yeah,
that's good stuff. And yeah, that's another theme that's been coming up in the conversations I have in the podcast, just the focusing on community kind of. And what you say, being the sage, I like that. That's a really good way. That's a really good kind of actionable, which was kind of my question. I like some advice. Do you have any other advice for people? Just stick to your mission like that. Be the sage.
Yeah. I mean, there's the debate, right? I mean, it depends on who you are, and I have no judgment, like whatever you want to do. But the idea is you either could be the sage or you could be the watchdog. Like you could be a rented animal that watches over savage yards at auto, you're the watchdog, or you could be the sage, right? Like both are doing similar things. They're watching out for the community. Like they're trying to protect, right? Wisdom is what the sage is trying to protect. The watchdog is just, trying to protect the property. I want our organization, I want our reporters and our editors to, instead of feeling like they're a watchdog, I want them to feel like they're part of the community, and that what we're doing as an organization is we're a sage, not a watchdog. Now, bad things happen, and you got to report. We cover city council, like bad things happen, and you got to cover that stuff. But what's your filter? Our filter is always, hey, people want to feel good about where they live and work, even when bad things happen. Like, what's the city doing about it? You had a city manager that was stealing. Like, what are they doing about it? The approach is still to cover it, but it's, hey, what are we doing about it? What's the right thing to do? Or what are the leaders saying that they're going to do about this school voucher system issue in Texas, right? We still cover this stuff, but it's like, it's from this filter of, people want to feel good about where they live and work. Like, we're not going to go after people for what they believe. We're not going to do that. We're going to listen with empathy and curiosity and humility. And we're going to approach the content that way. Like we're a sage, which, a sage would tell you wisdom. There's sometimes with decisions about school vouchers or, like there's two sides to it that have wise reasons behind them. We don't have to vilify the other person. And so I think this is something you and I talked about, like how do we build a community that has different worldviews, different socioeconomic status, upbringings, but they all every one of us wants to feel good about where we live and work, right? Can we start there and then approach these issues, like I said, with empathy and curiosity?
That's great stuff. Yeah, it's and just like keeping that in mind when you're reporting out the way it's reporting that way. It's like an integrity move too, because when people see that over and over again, they're like, that's where the trust comes from. Like, oh, they're not putting clickbait up or taking one side or the other or whatever. And then that trust, that kind of leads into probably where that fanatical that might be too strong a word, following comes from, the rabid following of people you've got.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
So real quick, before my wrap-up questions, I don't think I had this in the questions, but I'm curious, and you brought it up also earlier. Could you just tell me really quick about the printing facility? I don't know. I didn't want to ask about that. It's really interesting. Do you print everything for all your editions in the same, and you run the facility, right? Yeah.
Do you want me to take the camera over there? Would that be interesting?
Sure. Yeah. I'd like to see it.
I can walk over there real fast. That might be kind of fun. Yeah. But yeah, we built the printing facility in 2016, and the story behind it was we had this extra land out here, so this is our property.
Oh wow!
The story behind it is that we had a printer up in Dallas that was a good partner of ours. I mean, they were a great partner, but we kind of started to outgrow them, and I was like, hey, should we get a price decrease? This is like we're spending a lot of money, and they actually came up with a price increase. And so this is a fun little thing right here. This is our print ain't dead stone. Yeah. But
Print ain't dead.
I've never done this before. This is kind of fun.
Yeah, I like it. This never happened to me on a podcast before. Getting toted around.
Technology. This is a while that we can actually do this.
It's really crazy, actually. Yeah.
So we decided we basically put pen to paper. We're like, okay, like what would it look like if we just built our own facility? And it looked like it worked, like with the numbers. And so we were crazy, and we went and got the loans, and the banks, man, the presses aren't running right now. The banks financed it, but check it out.
Wow, that is freaking cool.
So yeah,
that's so cool. Wow.
Press line. We got the new community impacts hot off the press right there.
Wow.
They're ready.
That's a lot of newspapers.
They're going on the finishing line. So what we do is we stitch and trim our papers. So they come off the press kind of like this, like ragged, like you kind of get a normal paper, but then we stitch and trim them. So we cut them down and we staple them. So when they come in the mail, man, they're really nice. Like this is what it looks like. And so it comes
Very
in the
cool.
mail. It's full color paper. You see, we have a new Texas Monthly partnership. We have a content sharing partnership with them. That's really fun. And we print them all. And this is actually an in-house post office, a live post office that we ship them off. And that right here, that's like gold right now, the paper.
Oh,
but,
right, right. I'm sure. Yeah.
Crazy. So, that's the printing facility. So
that was pretty cool. I was not expecting that.
I wish the presses were running right now. They're so fun to watch.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I've watched videos of them before. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Man, that's some crazy looking equipment. Awesome, man. I don't usually do the...
What's fun about it is, what's fun about it is that we built this plant. Obviously, it was crazy. Financially, it was crazy. It was about a $13 million project, the building, the equipment, all that stuff. And then when you do the math, like, okay, well, we were spending about $5 million or so in printing at the time. And so we felt like we could break even with our loans and the staff. But here's the craziest thing about the story is that when we decided to pull the trigger, the Austin American-Statesman decided to close their plant. And what I didn't realize was how big of a deal that was because of the people. Like, when you're buying printing equipment, you're thinking, oh, like the shiny glossy papers are like, hey, or the brochures are like, it's easy, it's easy to print this stuff. But the truth is it's really hard, and you need really talented people. And so by chance, they were closing their facility in September of 2016, something like that. And they gave everyone 6 months off or whatever. And we needed them to start 6 months later in April of the next year, 2017. So we got all the people, and none of them lost their jobs. It was incredible. So it's incredible timing, but it worked out for us.
Wow, that is so cool, man. I had flashbacks. I used to work at a beer distributor, which is basically a giant warehouse. And I was like, man, when you were saying how expensive it was, I was looking at the equipment. I'm like, ooh, that does not come cheap, that stuff. At least you got some deals on some of the stuff.
Yeah, it was a good time to buy.
Yeah, I guess so. That was really cool. I was going to say, I don't usually do the video for these podcasts, but I'm going to have to at least make a clip or something of that. That was really cool.
Oh, man. That was a cool video. I'm sorry that's probably more than you wanted to see or hear.
No, that was awesome. I'll have to put the video up.
I'd never done that before.
Yeah, that was super cool. I feel like I'm there. All right. Do you have any announcements or big moves on the horizon for community impact?
We do. We do have those we're starting 2 new papers, one in Bernie, north of San Antonio, and the other one in a place called New Caney, which is north of Houston. But our Texas Monthly partnership was a big deal. That was the 2 beloved brands of Texas coming together. We're writing the news, the local news. They do a lot of like why you love living in Texas. And so that's a pretty cool partnership that we've put together that just launched in February. I'm working on all of our tech stuff, like, for the next 6 or 12 months. I'm working on, everything from our CMS to our ESP to our reader funnel, newsletter, to maybe a better patron. We call it the CI patron program. Yeah, I'm working on all that. And, we're evolving as a company. We're maturing as a company. The best way to describe it is, man, it seemed like we were in our teenage years for so long. And Kelly, our company president, who's been with us now for a few years, is starting to really build a team around her that I think is really excellent. And I think we have a lot of hope. And at CI, we are really well positioned. We're profitable. Like, that is huge. And we're well loved, and we're getting better at what we do every day. I think I'm very optimistic about our future, and I'm thinking, long term. I'm thinking, how do I not screw this up so my kids have a job?
It's a good thing to think about.
That is a good perspective. It really is. And so that's how I'm approaching work right now. Is how do I keep building for the future, and how we stay profitable and deal with all these things like tariffs, these things are out of our control, and try to stay optimistic about it, and try to get really great people around me to help me do this.
Yeah. Well, I bet you don't have too much struggles there. It's a pretty inspiring story, inspiring company. I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm sure it's still very difficult, but I'm sure.
It does help. It does help to have great people around a great product to attract other great people, no question. And I think that's one thing I'm really admiring that Kelly's starting to do even more. And I think what I mean is, like, it feels like there's a little bit of like moving from founder-led chaos of, the teenage years is the best way to put it, really, when you're growing a company, to like this next generation of leaders in Kelly and her team that's going to help kind of mature us even more and continue to round us out, to how do we bring in the next generation of Garretts to the company and build that out. So it's pretty exciting. But my friend Brent Beshore out in Columbia, Missouri, one of the great business minds of our time, says, all businesses are basically loosely functioning disasters that sometimes make money.
I like that.
and that's how it feels, But that's okay. It actually makes me feel better that like all businesses are like loosely functioning disasters. I love that, but yeah, it's worth it. It gives me a lot of energy. I can't imagine not doing this, even though some days were really hard.
That's great, man. That's a great place to wrap this up. And I gotta say, that really rings true. I'm like, when the hell do I get out of chaotic teenager founder mode? Because that's what my life feels like all the time. So I get it. Maybe I'll get to that, but that's a goal to shoot for someday.
Well, I hope it encourages you and I hope it encourages all your listeners that, no matter what they're dealing with, like, all businesses are loosely functioning disasters. Because you're dealing with people, and people are messy, and it's hard to do what we do, but it's a great time. It is. It's a great time to be in the business. There's pioneering stuff happening.
Awesome. Right on. Thank you so much, John. Where can people find you and Community Impact? Like, what should I link to? Anything else you'd like to point people to? I'm sure the website.
LinkedIn is by far the best way to reach me. I'm way more active on LinkedIn than anything else, but my website's communityimpact.com. I am on X, but becoming less and less on X, John P. Garrett. But yeah, if you're ever in Austin, like, shoot me an email, shoot me a note, and I'd love to give you a tour of the plant or the company and just learn from you. That's the thing I love that's happening in our industry. Like these podcasts like yours and the newsletter like yours, like, we're all like learning. And I always think, I play golf, and I'm always like, man, if I'd have played golf, if I'd had YouTube when I was a teenager,
right,
like, I think my swing would be a lot better. And I think
probably, yeah.
I think all of us that are in the business right now, in kind of this moment, we're learning from so many people and learning from others that it's a great time to be building something.
I have my 3-year-old son came up to me the other day and said, "Dad, look at this." And I said, "Oh yeah." He had his little toy. I'm like, "Yeah, it's a dinosaur." He's like, "No, Dad, it's an apatosaurus."
Wow.
I was like, "Oh my God, where did you even learn it?" Because he watches some dinosaur videos. It's crazy. 3 years old.
I love that.
I know, it's great. He was very huge eye roll at me. Like, "No, Dad." But anyway, yeah, awesome.
That's good.
Well, John, thank you so much. I'll wrap this recording up. Thanks for being here. And if you ever have anything to announce or anything with the thing, I'd love to have you back on as well.
Thanks, Paul. Likewise, if I could ever help you, let me know.
Will do.
Thank you for listening to Small Press Big Ideas. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to help the show, the best thing you can do is to tell a friend or colleague and just take a few minutes to leave a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to right now. It only takes a minute out of your day, but it really does help the podcast grow and reach more ears. Check back for new episodes every Monday.